Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. A very warm welcome to Meet Menaca to celebrate you. Today, we are going to be doing our episode 60, Skin Health, with Dr. Suganthi Thevarajah, who is a senior consultant dermatologist. Firstly, a very warm welcome to you, Dr. Suganthi. I know you're all the way from Malaysia and the time is not the most sociable time. So a huge thank you for you.
Thank you.
She is qualified as a doctor in 1989 and as an internal medicine physician in 1997. She went on to specialize in dermatology and completed her training in 2001. She further subspecialized in connective tissue diseases when she completed a one-year fellowship in Wake Forest University, North Carolina, USA. Dr. Suganthi has been attached to the Department of Dermatology Hospital, Kuala Lumpur since 1999 and currently serves as a senior consultant and head of the department. She's actively involved in training future dermatologists and has published some papers in local and international journals. It's a real honor and pleasure to have such a senior consultant and a specialist on our forum to speak about the skin health. So a very warm welcome once again. Thank you, Dr. Suganthi.
Thank you, Dr. Menaca, and I hope I can do justice to this forum. Thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. So skin health and dermatological issues, most of us are very familiar with. We find it in children, as adults, even with climate change, some allergic reaction, we all have either experienced it or seen somebody in our family, amongst our friends at some time or the other. The most common one, which is often discussed, is eczema. So I thought we'll start from there. So Dr. Suganthi, as a specialist and an expert, can you explain to our audience what is eczema and why does it happen?
Well, eczema is a blanket term that we use to describe all kinds of skin conditions where the problem is, sensitive skin. Well, broadly, you can divide eczema into what we call endogenous and exogenous. So I'll just try to make it simple. Endogenous means something that comes from within us. And of the endogenous eczemas, as we know it, the most common one, which all of you I'm sure have heard of, is atopic eczema or atopic dermatitis. So let me just spend a few minutes talking about atopic dermatitis. So atopic dermatitis is actually a genetically predetermined condition where there is a problem with the skin barrier function. All right. So that means if one of your parents have eczema, you probably have a 20 to 30% higher chance of getting eczema. And if both of your parents have, obviously an even higher chance of getting this disease. And it is a part of what we call, I'm sorry if I'm sounding a bit technical, I'll try to go a bit slow. It's sort of a cousin with other atopic or problems such as allergic rhinitis, and gut hypersensitivity and also bronchial asthma. Okay, so talking about eczema, very often it starts when the child is when the patient is a baby, okay, where they may get rash on the cheeks, and as they get older, in about 80% of the kids it actually gets better, but in about 20% of our patients it carries on into their primary school, secondary school, and an unfortunate 5 or 10% also have this disease when they become adults. So what is it actually? Patients ask me, doctor, is this a food allergy? Well, not really. Like I mentioned, food allergy is food allergy, but eczema means you intrinsically have a problem with your skin barrier function. Even if you eat all the right sort of food, you use the right kind of soap, you take very good care of your skin, you use your sunblock, you can still have eczema. Okay, so would you like to get any more details about it, Menaca?
There's a misconception most of the time that eczema could be contagious. I know,
Yes.
particularly in the school, environment, and when the kids, they feel that they don't want to play with this kid, or they don't want to go too close to them because it's contagious. As an expert, can you explain and
Well, first of all, I need to emphasize that
demystify
eczema
this?
yeah, atopic eczema is absolutely not a contagious disease. However, because the person or the patient has got sensitive skin and a poor skin barrier function, they are more prone to infections. What sort of infections? Well, if one keeps scratching one's skin, we may get a bacterial infection, which is secondary to the underlying eczema, or a secondary fungal infection, or even an infestation like scabies. Okay, but these can be easily treated. But even after treating these problems, the eczema remains. So there is no problem for children with eczema to go swimming in a public pool or to play with other kids. All they need to know, or that their parents need to know, is that they need to take good care of their treatment and seek the help from their general practitioners or dermatologists if their skin condition is severe and warrants more specific treatment.
And for the people around them, do you think it's really important for them to know as well that eczema is not contagious and it's okay to play with the children?
Absolutely. I mean,
some adults.
Come on, we people judge us from the way we look. So the skin, it's something that people look at every day, and a child's self-image may suffer terribly if they have skin with eczema. They may feel lonely, ostracized by their colleagues in school. And well, I think we should, if we address this problem and we educate parents and also the school teachers. So I think kids with eczema, when they go to school, maybe we should, we should tell the teachers to tell the other kids that this child is just got sensitive skin. You can play with him, you can touch him, you won't catch anything. And the teachers should also understand that maybe there are some activities this child should be a little careful about. If it's a very sunny day, maybe they shouldn't sweat so much, and that they need to put their moisturizers all the time. And if they go for their swimming classes, the chlorinated pool, as soon as they finish swimming, they should jump out of the pool, quickly have a shower and rub their moisturizers. So things like this actually help the child to cope better, because the teacher understands, they explain to the other pupils, they are accepted for their skin problems. Because come on, eczema is common. We estimate that maybe 5 to 10% of kids have eczema, and the incidence is definitely growing every year, just as is asthma and other allergic problems.
Thank you, Dr. Suganthi, because it's so true. All the allergic reactions are increasing, whether we like it or not, and it's going to become more and more commonplace. And I really like the way you explain sensitive skin. I think that is something people can understand so much better. So I am going to take that home for sure today at that point.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have kind of discussed what happens in eczema and it's not contagious and how you can approach it. Once you do have eczema, how can someone manage it or treat it?
Okay, so essentially most of the kids, a lot of people know what eczema is. They know it's a sensitive skin problem because, like I said, this is common. So when a little baby or a toddler has eczema, the first thing is the parents need to understand that they cannot use a harsh bathing, harsh soaps or showers, this wash liquids to bathe the kids. Some parents like to use, small soaps which smell great. They have a lot of lather, they have a lot of fragrance. So this is a big no-no. Not just for kids, but even for toddlers, for school-going children and adults with eczema or sensitive skin or any kind of dry skin. It's best that they use a soap which is, we call soap-free. Hey, how can a soap be soap-free? Well, it doesn't use sodium lauryl sulfate as a surfactant. It uses something gentler. So soap-free soaps don't lather so well. And kids don't like it because it's boring, but it's good for them. Number two, all those soaps which smell great with that lovely fragrance, that's another big no-no. Okay, so it's very boring soaps with no fragrance. And number three, some of these soaps have added moisturizing ingredients like glycerine and ceramide, and these are good for the skin. Number two, we would advise people with eczema not to take long showers. If you take a very long shower, maybe 15 minutes, half an hour, that's not good because the long shower will strip the skin of its natural moisture. So just take a short shower. Water should not be too hot because again, that dries out the skin. Lukewarm water is fine. Okay, number three, apply a moisturizer immediately after showering or bathing. So how soon after bathing? Within 5 minutes after you've had your shower or your bath come out, pat your skin dry, quickly apply the moisturizer all over. Why? Because when you apply it shortly after a bath, the moisturizer absorbs in very well. If you wait until your skin is 100% dry, it may not work as well. Now, moisturization, or we like to call it emollients, are actually the most important feature about the management of eczema. Not your steroid creams, not your steroid tablets, not your antibiotics, is moisturization or emollient treatment. In fact, there was a study much earlier which showed that little babies with a higher risk of developing eczema, if their parents use moisturizers religiously for them, it could actually reduce the incidence of them developing eczema later on in life. So that's very interesting. However, now there are some newer studies which kind of debunk that, but I still advise all parents who fear that their kids may get eczema to use a lot of moisturizer. Number four, talcum powder. I don't know whether people use it in the UK, do they?
It's not as much as Asia. I mean, as far as my knowledge
but
goes.
it's really terrible for the skin, because the talc makes the skin dry. And number two, the kids may also inhale the talc and have a higher predisposition to develop other respiratory problems. So talc is a no-no. Okay. What else? Number five, try to avoid soft toys. A lot of our kids like soft toys. The problem is we know now that one of the main, the number one triggers for the development of asthma, because in asthma, you already have this background of genetic predisposition and sensitive skin. It's just waiting for a trigger to trigger that acute flare. So one of the triggers is house dust mites, which is kind of ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It lives in soft toys. Where I stay in Malaysia, where the weather is hot, in India, in Sri Lanka, where it's very hot and sunny, we get a lot of house dust mites. Not sure about the UK. Is that a big problem over there as well?
It is there everywhere. I mean, of course, it's a bit more obvious and common back in Asia, but
yes,
definitely it's dust mite is there here as well.
Yeah, so I would tell these parents not to get their kids soft toys. And if they have carpets, now I know in the UK, almost all homes are carpeted. Carpets are a place where house dust might love. So if you have a carpet, you need to vacuum it all the time, and preferably a vacuum with what we call good suction power. And the other thing, the temperature, like in summer, I know a lot of people have the air condition on. If you have an air condition, try to get one which has what we call a HEPA filter, which also sucks out the house dust mite. And then, that's sort of the general advice.
Sure.
So number one, we tell patients about general measures that anyone and everyone can do. Okay. And then there's a note there where in the cold climate, you need to moisturize. Yeah. How often should you moisturize? All the time, every 2 hours if necessary. And you guys have a lot of great moisturizers, quite inexpensive compared to in Asia.
Of course.
And because eczema is such a big problem, you have a lot of moisturizers which don't have fragrance, which don't have parabens, which are free of everything. Of course, the ones that are free of everything seem to be a bit more expensive. Well, it's money well spent. Okay, so moisturizers. And then number three, you come to topical steroid creams. I know there's a lot of phobia about steroids. When you tell patients, we're going to give you a steroid cream, and they immediately say, no steroids. But that's because a lot of people don't understand that it's just something you apply. It's not something that you eat. Okay. Now, of course, there is a problem if we give patients oral steroids to take. We do give it sometimes, short courses, even for diseases like asthma and also for acute eczema. But a steroid cream is okay, provided we use the correct strength. And you can now get steroid creams in various vehicles. We call it a vehicle, means you can get it as a cream, as a lotion, as a gel, as a shampoo, etc. So there are lots of interesting ways that we apply steroids. And even when we talk about steroids, not all steroids are created equal. You have mild, moderate, potent, and super potent. So if we use a mild steroid cream or ointment or gel like hydrocortisone or clobetasol butyrate, probably hydrocortisone, which I know you can get over the counter in the UK. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
that
correct.
should be okay.
Hydrocortisone, we can get it.
But not to be used too often. Okay, twice a day should suffice. If one uses loads and loads of it, then we would of course get side effects. I give you an example. Over in Malaysia and in most of Asia, you can pretty much buy anything over the counter. You go to a pharmacy, you don't need a prescription. You can just tell the pharmacist, I want a super potent steroid like clobetasol, propionate, or betamethasone dipropionate. So we have patients buying stuff like this because they don't want to see the doctor. They don't want to waste their time. They just want to get the money, the medicine from the chemist, and then they use it and they apply it on their face. And when they apply it around their eyes, we've had a couple of kids who've developed problems like premature cataracts and glaucoma. So thank God in the UK, everything is controlled, maybe a bit too controlled, but okay, that's a different discussion. We'll not go to that. Steroid creams, yes, we can use it 2 times a day, but potent and super potent steroid creams should not be used continuously for too long a period. Maximum, I tell a patient to use it for 2 weeks. And after that, maybe just use it on weekends or as and when necessary. Then what about alternatives to steroid creams? I told you there are a lot of fancy new moisturizers with things like ceramides and humectants like glycerin. We also have steroid-free treatments. So alternative to steroid creams, which are also available in the UK. There's one called Protopic. The actual name is tacrolimus. We have it in 2 concentrations. And there's another cream called pimecrolimus. Both of these are alternative to steroids. So these are very good treatments, but I think one needs to get it from the dermatologist. I don't think GPs can actually prescribe it. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I've never practiced in the UK.
So in the UK, the common practice is you go to the GP first, and they will manage it. If they think they can't manage, they need specialist attention, that's the only time you get referred to a specialist. And then they would say, so you are correct. Like when it's super potent, I'm sure by that time they are with the specialist.
Oh yeah. So let me repeat what I said, because repetition is good. So we spoke about general measures, moisturization or emollients, topical steroids, and then topical non-steroid creams. We call it topical calcineurin inhibitors, stuff like topical tacrolimus and pimecrolimus. And then next we come to another kind of treatment which we often teach patients to do, called wet wraps. Some of you may have heard about it before. A wet wrap is essentially a kind of occlusive treatment. So imagine if you have many areas of your skin which are red and dry and itchy, and you put a cream or an ointment over it, which could be a moisturizer followed by a topical steroid. But to improve or enhance the absorption of the cream into your skin, we can cover our skin. You know, like when you make a cake or something and you cover it so that the moisture remains inside. Well, it's a similar principle. We can put 2 layers of the first layer could be, there are these tubular bandages which are available in the UK as well. You put a moisturizer with or without a steroid cream, followed by a bandage, and occlude the area which is treated. This actually improves the absorption of the cream. And for kids, it's really good because it prevents them from scratching. The first layer is a damp layer, and the second layer of this bandage is a dry layer, 2 layers. We call it wet wrap treatment. I mean, can't explain it to you unless I show you a video, but you know, this is not
ladies,
the place
you all know, it's similar to you putting foundation before starting to wear your makeup.
Quite right. I like the I like the way you said it. Yeah, so it's just get an idea. Now, the next treatment, which is also available only in, can be started by dermatologists, is phototherapy. When I tell patients phototherapy, they're like, what, doctor? Is it like radiation. No, it's different, because radiation is the treatment we use for patients for cancers, and the wavelength is very long and it penetrates through your body. But phototherapy, we most of the time use ultraviolet B phototherapy, the wavelength being 290 to 320 nanometers. It's very, very safe. We can use it in children. We can use it in old people, so long they can stand in the phototherapy cabin. Basically, these ultraviolet B light waves actually improve your skin condition. The only problem is you need to go to a center which provides this phototherapy treatment and do it 2 to 3 times a week for a couple of weeks to see some improvement. And logistically, it may not be possible for a lot of people to visit a place 2 to 3 times a week. And I'm sure this treatment is covered by your NHS. I don't think a lot of private dermatologists would be doing this treatment.
If it's required, I'm sure it's available.
Okay. Now, if that doesn't work, or if the patient has problems coming, or if the patient has a phobia for narrow spaces, because you kind of go to a room or into a cabin, they close it, and the light, and some people, they can't be in these.
Is it like a claustrophobia?
Yes, that's right. Claustrophobia. We may consider oral medication. So there are lots of oral medications. I know in 20, 30 years ago, all we gave patient was short courses of oral cortisone. But right now, people are also using medications like methotrexate, azathioprine, mycophenolate mofetil, even cyclosporin. And right now, the newest kid on the block, or the latest treatment, are actually injections. We call it a biological treatment for eczema. But the eczema has to be really bad, and we have criteria. So these are injections. They are called dupilumab. They work against interleukin 4 and 13. There's also an oral medication called upadacitinib. So I'm not going to be talking about that. If a patient goes to that level, then you probably need to see a dermatologist. But suffice to say that there are enough treatments for everyone, and a treatment has to be sort of customized. There's no one treatment which fits everyone. We also have to look into whether the government allows us to start these treatments on patients, because some of these treatments, especially the biological drugs, are very expensive, and some of the non-biological treatments, which I mentioned earlier, the oral medications, need blood monitoring and so on and so forth.
I think you're very comprehensive about it. But, there are authorities and associations which regulate these things in the UK, at least for sure. And
of course,
they will also have I think effectiveness of any treatment is something what they would closely monitor before they provide the treatment.
Of course, so, certainly.
So moving on, as in your words, as you said, people often judge you by the cover, i.e. the way you look. So as young boys and girls, acne becomes a huge issue when you're growing up. Acne vulgaris in scientific term. So would you be able to enlighten us what is acne, and why do some people get, some don't, and what can we learn from you as an expert?
Okay, well, acne, all of us, I think most of us here would have had acne at some stage in our life. And worldwide incidence, it's about 80% of people would have had acne at some stage in their life. And when we are adults, it seems like a very small problem. But for a lot of young people and teenagers, their self-esteem is badly affected by acne. They kind of self-isolate, and they try lots of strange treatments or things that they read over that they read in blogs, or treatments which are alternative treatments which may not really work. So acne may seem like a mild problem, but in some people with moderate to severe acne can heal with a lot of scarring, and the scarring is permanent. So it's better for us to treat the acne early before the patient gets scarring. So what causes acne? Well, I'm sure, as all of you know, acne is a disease of what we call the pilosebaceous glands. Basically, our follicles in our skin are blocked because there is a lot of dead skin cells blocking our hair follicles. There is also excess of sebum, the stuff that we call, my face is very oily. That's not oil, that's sebum. So all of us have sebum on our skin. And when we are teenagers, because of hormonal influence, we have more sebum than normal. Okay. And that excess of sebum plus the excess of dead skin cells or proliferation of skin cells plus a bacteria. There's also a bacteria in this, okay, in this soup. It's called Propionibacterium acne. I'm just going to call it P. acne for short. So this combination of things causes acne. So people can have different kinds of acne. They can have comedones, open or closed comedones, or they may have little zits, we call it papules, or they may have pustules, or they may even have big boils, which we call abscesses. So most people have either mild, moderate. Luckily for us, very few people have severe acne. So how do we manage acne? First, we need to advise again. I always like to talk about, non-medical treatment first, because I think, we shouldn't be, shoving medicine down our patient's throat. Let's be real and let's relate with patients who come to us. So they ask me things like, doctor, is it because, I ate oily food or pizza or chocolate, so this is what people used to think before. Well, the answer is no, it's not the food you eat. You can be vegetarian and still have acne. Okay, but there are studies which show that high glycemic foods can cause more acne. So I tell young people, don't eat so much of sugary stuff and chips and high carbohydrate stuff. Okay, just eat regular, normal food, low, that's also good for health. Number 2, facial cleanser. A lot of people like to use all these facial scrubs, these harsh things, so-called, to exfoliate their skin. Well, we tell our patients, whether they are teenagers or adults, not to use very harsh cleansers. Just use gentle, soap-free cleansers. Okay, and the number 3 is we tell them not to pick at their, a lot of us, when we have acne, our fingers or hands accidentally start picking and touching and pinching and squeezing. All this is not good, because this actually makes acne worse. Okay, you get more inflammation, and it may also heal with scarring. Number 3. Number 4, what about over-the-counter medications? Do they work? Of course they do. Not everyone needs to see a dermatologist. So what are over-the-counter medications that patients can try? You have simple things like a tea tree oil. It works. Tea tree oil is from a tree from Australia. It's got antiseptic and antibacterial properties. So if you apply it, it can actually help to dry out some of your pimples or acne lesions. Other medications that we can get over the counter, for example, benzoyl peroxide. Okay, I know some people say it's very irritating, but when we start using a product which contains benzoyl peroxide, start with a low concentration, maybe 2.5%. Okay, put 2.5% once a day. It may dry up. You also have benzoyl peroxide in a benzoyl peroxide wash. There are all kinds of formulation. The mistake a lot of people do is, after they've washed their face with a very strong cleanser, because they think they want to get rid of the oil, they apply benzoyl peroxide. So their skin is already dry. And when you apply benzoyl peroxide on top of your dry skin, of course, dry skin, but with acne, there is a possibility of getting irritation. And then patients come back and say, oh, I can't use that stuff. It doesn't suit me, it burnt my skin. But it's probably because they've used a very strong cleanser. So benzoyl peroxide is number 1. Number 2, antibiotic creams or gels. Well, antibiotic creams or gels like clindamycin cream or gel works. But if you use antibiotic gel alone without benzoyl peroxide, there is a very high incidence of developing bacterial resistance. So I would advise patients not to only use antibiotic cream or gel by itself, but to combine it with something else like benzoyl peroxide. So maybe use the antibiotic cream or gel in the morning and benzoyl peroxide in the night, something like that. The third topical treatment is something that we call retinoic acid, which is a vitamin A derivative. There are many in the market. There's something called Retacnil, Differin, Adapalene. I think I'm not sure in the UK whether you can get these over the counter or do you need a prescription, Menaca?
I am not 100%, but I doubt it whether they will be, unless until it's a very mild form, and Dr. Kanta might
no,
know, we will ask her later. But I don't think, usually anything which has to be controlled is not available in the UK.
Okay, but this again has a potential to be irritating, and it cannot be used by pregnant or breastfeeding women. Okay, because it is potentially harmful to the baby, or
if
what
it is,
we doctors
then definitely
call.
not over the counter, because
Okay,
I know
so
that even the toothpaste is not available over the counter for us
okay,
unless
fine.
until there's a prescription. So,
Okay,
yeah.
and there are also other creams, things which contain azelaic acid, and then there are also other stuff that I mean, a patient of mine who was on holiday from the UK, she showed me a bunch of products that she bought. I think it's this brand called The Ordinary, which is like wonderful. I was like, wow, and it was so cheap, and it's got stuff like niacinamide, azelaic acid, alpha and beta hydroxy acids, and all this actually do help. But we need to find, it needs to suit the patient's skin. We can't just put a whole bunch of acids on our face and expect it to be normal. It may become irritated. So we need to use it judiciously and carefully. Like I said, there's no one treatment which suits everybody. So treatment has to be personalized. Now, if creams don't work, so we've been through cleansers, creams for our acne. Number 3 is oral medication. So the oral medication which can be prescribed by general practitioners or dermatologists is actually antibiotics. So why do we give antibiotics for acne? It's not only because we want to kill the bacteria, it's because there's a lot of inflammation going on when people have acne. So we tend to give patients a longer course. A normal course of antibiotics for something like a chest infection, maybe for a week or 2, but for acne, we could go up to 2 months, 3 months, even 4 months, but we tend to give low dose of antibiotics like doxycycline, etc. Okay, the next stage of acne, which when acne is really severe, is we go on a medication called Accutane or isotretinoin. This is for really, really bad acne. Okay, and this medication is strictly only to be prescribed by dermatologists because of its toxicity. So I'm not going to talk more about that.
Sure.
There are also people saying, can I do lasers for acne? Well, laser treatment helps for acne scars. If any of you are someone here from Canada, but okay, I did some of my training in the States. Over there, cosmetic dermatology is a big thing. So people,
I was about to say cosmetic dermatologist
cosmetic dermatology
which is growing very rapidly.
Because it makes a lot more money than people who practice medical dermatology like myself. Okay, but I'm not interested in cosmetic dermatology, but I know a little about it. We can use something called blue light or red light. This also helps with the acne. So there's a machine which produces this blue light or red light or combination, not your regular blue light or red light. This is a medical device. You sit in front of it because some patients say, hey, I don't want to take antibiotics. I don't want to take Accutane. I want something new. I want something fancy. So this thing works, but it's expensive. Would you like to ask me any more questions? I think I'm going on and on.
That's okay. It's good that you're being very comprehensive about everything.
Okay.
But, particularly for women, it's very kind of, there's a big talk about it. At this, definitely the locker room talk, that premenstrual acne. Is there any truth to it, or does it happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, premenstrual acne is not a fallacy, it's a fact. Definitely. So what we would tell such patients is to continue this, good skincare regimes. There's another medication which I didn't mention earlier because I didn't want to be, overly comprehensive. But there is the oral contraceptive pill, which can be taken for acne. Okay, but only by women, of course, not by men. And normally in Malaysia, we would also advise this for patients who are, of course, already menstruating, and patients who also require birth control. So it's 2 in 1. It controls the acne, and it also is a method of birth control. You can't just use any old contraceptive pill that you buy in the chemist. There are some very specific contraceptive pills like Yes, okay, which has something called drosperinone. At least in Malaysia, it's available. And these also have to be taken after seeing a dermatologist, because there are always risks of taking an oral contraceptive pill. Some patients may have a slightly higher incidence of developing clots in the calves. We call it venous thrombosis and other things, but this is a good medication. In the States, they also have another medication which they use for hormonal acne, which is aggravated by hormones, which is called spironolactone. But in Malaysia, it's not approved yet, so I'm not going to talk about it. I don't know. I think that I think Malaysia is pretty much like the UK. We are very safe and very slow to start new treatments. We do a lot of research, but in the States, things move very fast.
Of course, particularly anything to do with cosmetics, I think it moves very fast.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Sure. Thank you so much for being very comprehensive.
Most welcome.
Yeah, because this is a very common issue, and a lot of people struggle with it. Particularly, as you said, it can knock somebody's confidence off totally when you're young or a teenager. I think so. It's really important.
Yes.
So the next thing I want to ask you about as an expert is about
psoriasis.
I wasn't very aware actually as a child when I grew up. Of course, when I went to dental school, I learned it. In the UK, after I came here, I definitely know many people who are suffering from
psoriasis,
or in the scientific term,
Psoriasis Vulgaris.
So as an expert, what can you tell about us?
Okay, well, psoriasis, or we call it Psoriasis Vulgaris. So Vulgaris is a term which means common. So we use this term Vulgaris for lots of skin diseases, like you have acne vulgaris, psoriasis vulgaris. So obviously there are other forms of psoriasis other than psoriasis vulgaris, but let's just stick to psoriasis vulgaris because that's the commonest form. So what is psoriasis? Psoriasis, I tell patients, is basically immune-mediated disease of the skin. A long time ago, we just thought that, oh, this is just another inflammatory skin problem like eczema, but now we know that it's not. People think that immune-mediated problems are things like rheumatoid arthritis, systemic lupus erythematosus, but well, hey, now we know psoriasis is also immune-mediated. We have a lot of immune dysfunction going on underneath our skin. So who gets psoriasis? Well, it's estimated that 2 to 3% of the world's population has psoriasis. So in a room of 100 people, you may get anything from 2 to 3 people with psoriasis, and some of them don't even know it's psoriasis. They think it's, eczema. So it's just a bit of rash. It'll go away, but most of the time it doesn't. So does psoriasis affect only the skin? No. We have up to 20 to 30% of our patients who also have psoriasis affecting the joints. Because like I told you, this is an immune-mediated disease. So it can affect the skin, the joints, and it can also affect the nails. Okay, because when you look at it scientifically, your nails are actually an extension of your bones pretty much. So you can have some nail changes. I'm not going to go a lot into it. And sometimes patients with psoriasis can also have problems with their eyes. We call it iritis. This is very rare. Okay, now let's just talk about psoriasis of the skin. So how does it look like? Again, it's a rash. Well, everything is a rash, but this is a very well-defined scaly rash, especially over the outer parts of our limbs, like our elbows, our knees. The other common site for psoriasis is the scalp or on our head. So a lot of people with psoriasis initially think they have bad dandruff. They say, doctor, I have really bad dandruff. It doesn't go away. I've tried all the anti-dandruff shampoos. Then when we go into or delve into their history, they tell us, my dandruff is not like other people's dandruff. The scales are large. Every time I scratch, you get these big scales which flake off on my clothes. Number two, when I keep scratching, there are areas of pinpoint bleeding. It bleeds. This is also a hallmark of psoriasis. Number three, the scales extend beyond the scalp. So it's not just on the scalp. It may go to the hairline, behind the ears. Sometimes they can also see some scales on their eyebrows. And then later, they may see scales on other areas or well-defined scaly areas on areas like their elbows, their back, between their buttocks, on their abdomen, on their legs, their knees. Some patients even have a lot of psoriasis on their palms and soles. And there are many different forms. So who gets it? Can little babies? Yes, we have kids, babies. I've seen a baby of 4 months with psoriasis. I've seen very old people with psoriasis. So why do they get it? Well, there's a problem in the immune system of their skin. So can we prevent psoriasis? We can't. There is a genetic predisposition alone, but there are some things which make psoriasis worse, or what we call triggers, like trauma. If we keep scratching our psoriasis, thinking we want to clean off the scales, it comes back again. Trauma makes it worse. Infection, certain infections like a sore throat caused by a bacteria called Streptococcus can actually make psoriasis worse. And sometimes patients who have a HIV, HIV disease, like these injecting drug users, they present to us for the first time in their lives with psoriasis. Infection, metabolic problems. Sometimes in pregnancy, we may see psoriasis for the first time. But strangely enough, there are some patients with pre-existing psoriasis who actually get better when they're pregnant. So it can work either way. And then METIM. We have a mnemonic called TIMES, TIMES. Drugs, certain medications can cause psoriasis, can make psoriasis worse. Certain hypertensive medications, certain medications we use for psychiatric problems like lithium, etc., can make psoriasis worse. And stress can also aggravate psoriasis. Sure. Okay, you're going to ask me another question?
Yeah, I mean, psoriasis, as you said, psoriasis is becoming more and more commonplace as well, unfortunately. So what treatment modalities are available for psoriasis?
Okay, so let's start with the scalp, because that's the commonest, psoriasis of the scalp. So when patients have psoriasis of the scalp, we would advise them to use shampoos which contain things like tar. Okay, the kind of tar we use, okay, it's not the stinky coal tar that, people used to make the roads. It's refined coal tar. And they have some quite nice smelling preparations these days. Coal tar shampoo. Some people or some patients seem to improve using shampoos which contain sulfur. And some patients, so sulfur, things like selenium sulfide. So that's got a funny smell, but it works. And number 3, shampoos which contain antifungal ingredients like ketoconazole. That also seems to work. Having said that, other than shampoos, there are also other things you can apply on the scalp. You have steroid preparations in the form of a foam, in the form of gels, scalp solutions. Okay, so other than steroids for the scalp, there's also another, I would say, a gel which contains a vitamin D derivative called Dovanax or Zamiol. Is it available in the UK, or Divobac?
I think if it is anything is controlled drug, it wouldn't be available unless it is prescribed.
Sorry. So a lot of things I'm talking about are okay, but anyway,
it is good to know anyway for people who are going to use it.
So there is a combination of a vitamin D derivative along with the steroid, which can also be put on the scalp. And the most important thing I tell patients, do not scratch your scalp, because every time you scratch it, that's trauma and you get more scales, you may get infection. And number 2, always make sure your scalp is well moisturized. People talk about moisturizing their face and their hands and their legs, but their scalp may be very dry. You can put olive oil, you can use any oil which suits you on your scalp and keep it moist. So the shampoos, if patients don't want to use medicated shampoos, I just tell them to use baby shampoo. Shampoo which does not have, again, no fragrance, no coloring, free of SLS sulfates and all of that. Gentle shampoos seem to do the job better than stronger shampoos, because the drier your scalp is, the more itchy it is. Okay, so that's for the scalp. If patients have psoriasis on the other parts of their body, they can use a topical steroid ointment, cream, or gel, which is also combined with something called salicylic acid. Okay, it's a combination which helps to remove the scales. And then there are other newer creams that we use, the cream I spoke about earlier with vitamin D and steroids. Okay, so you have a whole lot of creams, and of course, moisturize. Very important, because people with psoriasis, it's also itchy. People used to say psoriasis is not an itchy skin problem. Okay, but use a very mild soap. Number two, if the psoriasis is very bad, you need to see your dermatologist again, and they can start you on phototherapy. You know, the treatment I spoke to you about earlier, ultraviolet B.
Yeah.
For psoriasis, we have other treatments which are also ultraviolet A. We can do something called bath puva. The patient goes to a center, they soak in a bathtub with a brown solution called Sorolin, and then after soaking for 10 minutes, the doctor will shine the patient with ultraviolet A. All these are good treatments, they work.
Sure.
Okay, then number three is oral medication again, which modulates your immune system, similar to eczema, things like methotrexate, cyclosporin, etc. And number four is, of course, biological treatment again. So biological treatment has been used for psoriasis for the last 15 years. But these treatments, again, can only be started by dermatologists. And most of them are injections, but there are also oral medications now. And they don't cure. They don't cure the disease. They just control.
What we can also say is psoriasis is definitely not contagious either.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah, so another thing for us to clarify. And the other thing I was thinking, you did mention immuno related. So I think it's like my limited knowledge, as far as I know, it's autoimmune, right? It's the body is fighting against your own skins and organs.
Yes.
One last thing I wanted to ask about that is, are there any complications of psoriasis?
Okay, like I mentioned, you see, most of the patients that we see have got patches or plaques or plaques or, you know, patches everywhere. But there is some serious forms of psoriasis where a patient's, the whole skin, at least 90% of the skin is red and flaky. We call that like a red man syndrome. We call it erythrodermic psoriasis. And there's also another form where patients develop pustules all over the skin. That's also serious, potentially life-threatening. When you talk about complications, let's talk about psoriatic arthritis. It's a terrible disease. It's even worse than rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, all of us, know how people look with rheumatoid arthritis, but psoriatic arthritis can attack the bones so quickly that a patient can have permanent deformity within 2 years. And in patients who have psoriatic arthritis, forget about all the creams. We need to put them on oral medication or on biological treatment. Now, the other problem with psoriasis is when patients get uveitis or eye inflammation because of psoriasis, because again, it's immune mediated. So such patients should see an ophthalmologist straight away. They need special treatment because psoriasis, which affects the eyes, or uveitis, can potentially cause loss of vision. So this is also very serious. So a common theme with the chronic skin problems is these are chronic, no cure, but can control, and have to see a specialist, and can cause a massive impact on patients' quality of life because it's something that's visible. A patient with diabetes or hypertension, no one knows they have high diabetes or hypertension. But anyone who has a skin problem, it's something visible. I mean, the skin is the largest organ in the body. So we should make sure that we respect skin problems and refer appropriately or see the person who can actually manage this problem.
If in doubt, refer, right? Thank you so much, Dr. Suganthi. You have really covered a lot and we've been very, very comprehensive. And I know there are loads of questions have come through. Whenever we have a good speaker, I know that we have a lot of questions come through. And Dr. Shri, I haven't forgotten about your question either. I will be coming back to you, but because we are running against the clock, whilst we are live, let me finish what we have to do, and then I will come back to you. So next week, we will be speaking about, in episode 61, Mawai Nityanandan will be speaking about suicide prevention. He is, by profession, he's an engineer, writer, and social worker. He graduated from the University of Moratuwa in Sri Lanka and later Cranfield University in the UK. He is a well-known Tamil writer and also directed numerous plays. He is the principal of Bharati Academy, a prestigious Tamil language school in Melbourne, which he founded 28 years ago. The school now also has an online presence internationally. Following his retirement in Australia, Nithi has been volunteering in northern Sri Lanka. He has worked in the area of mental health at grassroots level. The Suicide Prevention Center he founded has been in operation for the past 8 years. In the North, people know as Kai Kodukkum Nanbargal.
English translation is extending a helping hand for friends.
However, you can use Sumitrayo, but it is basically it's a Jaffna branch of Sri Lanka Sumitrayo. So that next time it will be Suicide Prevention by Nityananda. Because it is a mental health day next week. So it's I think it's quite apt for us to talk about this topic next week, because as many of you know, I'm very passionate about mental well-being and mental health, and it's no secret that I'm ambassador for it. So I thought it is apt for us to bring somebody who closely works at grassroots levels with mental health. Now over to Kanta Niranjan to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Meet Menaca connecting you, I really like to give great thanks to Dr. Suganthi Thevarajah. Very nice to meet you today in this forum, and excellent talk. It's a dermatology, it's a visible problem and carry a stigma as well. So a lot of people were actually very keen to listen to this problem, and you did it so well, so clear, a lot of knowledge, a lot of information you have given in common problems like acne, eczema, psoriasis, and various. I think we can go on talking dermatology is another common problem. So I really thank you very much for your presentation today. Greatly appreciated that. And also I really appreciate all the audience today, in spite of a lot of things happening, because all the lockdown is released and people are going out, but a lot of you who are joined in today, we actually appreciate and thank you very much for all the audience as well. And thank you very much. That's all I know a lot of people are waiting to ask questions. Thank you. Thank you, Suganthi. Very nice to see you.
Thank you, Dr. Kanta. Really, I cannot appreciate you enough, Dr. Suganthi. It was a really comprehensive coverage. I know dermatology is such a vast subject, and there's no beginning or nor end once you start talking about dermatology. So it's a very vast subject. So you've been very comprehensive and covered as much as you can. I'm sure a lot of questions have come through to me already, and there are people who are waiting to ask questions as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Suganthi. For people who are waiting on Facebook, there are a couple of announcements. First announcement is I would be taking a break for a few weeks as a host. For the next few weeks, my friend Rohan Mehra will be covering me for the next few weeks. He is a fantastic host. I am sure you wouldn't even know that I am missing. So please support Rohan and the team as usual, and give your support. And because this is a social cause, we ask is to please subscribe to the YouTube channel, share this far and wide so we can help other people with your help. That is my request to you. And as I said, I would be missing for the next few weeks for personal reasons, but I am sure the show must go on, as they say. And my very dear friend, Rohan Mehra, will be hosting the show for the next few weeks, and the team will be here to support him and to support you. So jokes apart, next time we will be seeing you at the same time, same place with the episode 61, Mawe Nityanandan, on the to celebrate Mental Health Day on the 10th of October at 2 o'clock UK time, 6:30 Sri Lanka, India time, with suicide prevention to celebrate Mental Health Day. So for people who are on Facebook, it has come to that time of the day to say goodbye. Until I see you again, stay safe, be happy, and keep smiling.